Welcome back. So let's get into our panel discussion for tonight. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has made startling allegations against Minister Senzo Mchunu. He spent the day testifying at the Madlanga inquiry, which is looking into claims of political interference in police investigations. Now, joining us to look at the day's revelations, we are joined by security expert Mr. Bradley Steyn. We're joined by legal expert Mr. Benedict Piri, and in studio, the founder of Public Interest South Africa, Mr. Tebogo Cast. Remember, as always, we're really keen to get your views on what we heard today. So do send us a WhatsApp on 072-110-5584 or give us a call on 010-594-6010. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. And what a day it certainly has been. Much anticipation. We've been waiting for today since the 6th of July. But I think just as we get started, and I give you an opportunity to really start to reflect on, what really stood out for you today and where you think that's going to lead us as we get into tomorrow. What I do want to do for the benefit of our viewers, actually go through the timeline of this political killings task team. Of course, something that the KZN Police Commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, also started off with much early on in the day, the formation of this political task team and just how far it went until its disbandment, the political killings task team. So we're going to bring up a timeline so that you're able to see that. But of course, the police commissioner of KZN there letting us know that it was established in July 2018. That's when this political killings task team was officially launched. Then in June 2019, it adopted an integrated model where the DPP for KZN assigned a dedicated team of prosecutors to that task team, which resulted in it being a multidisciplinary prosecutorial guided team. So skills and more resources being brought into it. In April 2024, Mr. Armand Swart, an engineer in Vereniging, was murdered. This high-profile assassination served, of course, as a catalyst for a wider investigation that would reveal far-reaching connections within the criminal underworld. Then, on the 10th of October, and you'll see that in the next slide, we heard today as well that 10 political killings task team members arrived in Johannesburg. This was to assist with the Gauteng Organized Crime Unit with investigations. And you'd remember that even on the 6th of July, this was something that really was the beginning of the end for the KZN Police Commissioner. On the 6th of December, the investigating team, assisted by the PKTT, conducted 2 operations for different reasons, one being the arrest of Katiso Molefe and the execution of a search and seizure arrest on the property of Vusmuzi Kat Madlanga. In December 2024, on the 30th, ballistics analysts compiled a report that linked weapons that were seized during the Swart murder investigation to 4 high-profile murders. And just the day after that, Minister Mchunu issuing a directive to disband the political killings task team. January 2025, General Mkhwanazi appearing on a media platform where he starts now to speak publicly against these allegations of political interference. On the 5th of March, we know he took that matter to Parliament. On the 26th of March, of course, the dockets investigated by the political killings task team were handed over to General Sintumule on the instruction of Lieutenant General Sibiya, who we know now is on suspension. We saw Katiso Molefe's bail being refused in April. And in fact, also in April, 3 additional dockets still under investigation by that task team, handed over to SAPS head on the instruction of Sibiya. In May, we saw Kat Madlanga arrested. Then, in June 2025, that's this year, we saw crime intelligence and project leader of the task team, together with others, arrested by IDAC for alleged fraud. Katiso Molefe's bail was upheld on the 27th of June. But let's go right down to the 6th of July, where for many of us, all of this really coming to light, that press briefing that got the country talking right up until this point. Then we saw the minister placed on leave, Sibiya ordered to stay home, and now we are here. It's been quite the journey. And this is what we heard from the commissioner today about just the work of this political killings task team and how important it was. I think, Mr. House, let's start with you. Highlights that come out today about just how deep the rot really is and the important role of this team.
Yeah. Naledi, there's a significant thing that I would like to raise. I hope it is significant. When you mentioned 2018 July, when the political killings task team was formed, we were riding the crest of the Tumamina New Dawn wave, where we're like, hey, a new president who's talking the right language, doing the right things, and certainly they're up to. And when the political killings task team was formed in 2018, we were a very hopeful nation, maybe blinded by the euphoria that engulfed us as a nation. And yet we were not paying attention to some of the things that it turns out that some of those people who jumped into the bandwagon of Tumamina actually didn't have good intentions. They said, go and send us so you can perpetuate the harm that has been visited to this body politic for decades. And we just want to perpetuate it and make sure that we protect ourselves and friends and crooks. And it's very sad that we are where we are today because of a single act of whistleblowing by Police Commissioner, Mkhwanazi. And it doesn't also start there. It's actually also, another nexus of it goes with Justice Edwin Cameron. When you blew the whistle about what happened in Mangaung Correctional Services, and then it exploded to what we know about the Thabo Bester today. And you ask yourself, if it was not for whistleblowing and the significance of those dates itself, where would we be as a country? And now to listen today, the testimony given by General Mkhwanazi, putting the meat on the bones that he left us with in July, it's very jarring. Obviously, there's still an opportunity for people to come and rebut, those who are implicated to come and rebut the evidence and to clear their names. But it is quite a very jarring, it's very serious allegations that is made.
And we're going to go through some of the highlights, but Bradley, let me bring you in as well. Of course, Bradley Steyn is a security expert. Just your view on the day that was a productive day for the very first day of this inquiry that has had many glitches up until this point to get it started.
As our people say, well, fine. And that started with accreditation issues in the morning. Apparently, I heard earlier on your program, Major General Jeremy Very talking about how metal detectors weren't working, the building wasn't sterilized and secured beforehand. Seriously, people, let's get our act together here. This is probably one of the most important inquiries that we're going to hear in my lifetime, and I'm well into my 50s. Let's get the basics right and, make sure that security is in place and that we know what we're doing. Firstly, so just from a homework point of view, let's get the basics right. The Minister of State Security should be highly embarrassed by the fact that, they haven't got their ducks together. It's very, very important that this gets dealt with in the right way. And so that, task teams like this have been put together in the United States for years, where they use multi-agency components from intelligence to DEA to FBI and forensics. And, they operate very effectively and very well. What General Mkhwanazi is saying here is, look, I'm gutful. There's no way for us to get this working like it should work as a well-oiled machine. This General Mkhwanazi knows what he's doing. He's a squared away professional law enforcement administrator for us. And he's the best person for the job, but his hands are tied.
You know, we're also joined by Professor Nhlanhla Gopal, who is, of course, Professor of UKZN as Department of Criminology and Forensic Studies, and Bradley staying there, as you hear, Prof, scathing, right, in, I suppose, the logistics and the organizing of this commission. But let's get into some of what we've heard, and if you think that we were able to make decent headway in the time that we had on day one. You know, standing out for me is the moment when we heard Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi saying that there were various attempts for him to try and speak to Minister Senzo Mchunu about the disbandment of this political killings task team. And he says, I had to hold that briefing in July because had I not, there would be a total collapse of the criminal justice system. I mean, those are big words. A total collapse of the criminal justice system, Prof.
Good evening, Naledi. Good evening to your viewers. Yes, of course, I think, you know, General Mkhwanazi coming from inside would have not made that very bold and clarion, not just statement, but I think call in terms of the collapse of the criminal justice system if he was not 100% certain that that's exactly what was happening. So it's very scary, I think, for us as a country that we arrived at this point, regardless of the fact that he was trying to make these, you know, get it known out there to the minister that this is what was happening. But of course, total collapse of the criminal justice system, then we were going to be in a state that was just completely lawless and would have undermined security, justice, etc. in our country. Absolutely worrying.
Yeah, Benedict, thank you so much for joining us as well. You know, there's obviously, even in the timeline that we got from the police commissioner today of KZN, you heard some of the evidence leaders also asking the questions around, we need the evidence behind some of the allegations that are put forward, right? So evidence of where, for instance, the instruction would have come from for the disbandment. We need to see some of that evidence. And I think that being an important point for us to start with, where you are concerned, are you satisfied that he has been able to substantiate some of the allegations that he's made, even on day one?
Good evening, my lady, and the panelists and the viewers. I think there's a proper roadmap that the Commission has placed around how General Mkhwanazi's claims will be substantiated in the process of the Commission as a whole. So I think it's clear that he has been called to produce certain documents and evidence to ensure that his claims are supported. We know, for instance, about the interministerial committee minutes that they haven't been declassified, and there'll be a process around that. And that will shed light around how this political killings task team was actually constituted, the parties that were involved, and will implicate Minister Mchunu in respect of how did he then not consult some of the people that were involved in setting this up, and will require an explanation from him in respect of how he's exercised his constitutional role as Minister of Police. So I think that has set us down a path. And similarly, given the fact that the Commission is following this three-part process, if you call it that, I think you'll find in this first part that a lot of the evidence will be laid for people like Minister Mchunu and others who will be implicated to then come back in the second part to rebut and then substantiate with their own evidence. And then in the third part, people like General Mkhwanazi would then have an ability to reply. So I think by the end of the process, we will have had a robust process that really critiques and discovers a lot of this evidence, the way that the process and the Commission has been set up. So I'm satisfied with where we're going. General Mkhwanazi really only got to the explosive bits towards the end of today. and we'll see from tomorrow what else will be uncovered.
Yeah, I mean, again, we really, so much anticipation for more to be heard from Police Commissioner of KZN, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, though, feel free to send us a WhatsApp as well. What stood out for you on day one of the Madlanga Commission? Send us a WhatsApp on 072 110 5584 or give us a call on 010 594 6010. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Newsfeed PM, the late edition. And of course, we have wrapped up day one of the Madlanga Commission. What stood out for you? Give us a call on 010 594 6010. Maibongwe is calling in from Johannesburg. Maibongwe, good evening. Thank you so much for calling.
Evening. How are you, ma'am?
I'm well, sir. Talk to us.
Right. So I think the Madlanga Commission could make a meaningful difference, yes. But whether it does depends heavily on few ifs, right? Number one, if those findings are acted upon, right? Because there's no point of doing a commission and then if you get the finding from that commission, there's nothing that happens, right? Now, number two, if the political and institutional leaders, especially in the police, NPA, intelligence, judiciary, are willing to allow transparency and do not obstruct access to evidence or protect implicated individuals. Now, number three, if there is sustained oversight. Now, but before we even get there, my understanding on this is there is no equality when it comes to the law in South Africa. Because if an ordinary citizen is believed to have committed crime, they are taken behind bars, right? But then if a high individual of honor is believed to have committed a crime by the police, there is a commission of inquiry. Why can't this commission of inquiry be implicated or implied to everyone?
All right. Okay. Maibongwe, thank you so much for that. Appreciate your thoughts. So Brandon is in Cape Town. Brandon, good evening.
Good evening, my lady. How are you?
I'm well, sir. Thanks for calling. Talk to us.
Thanks. Well, firstly, I hope the commissioner is listening. We must congratulate him for being brave and finally taking the bold step that he did. But we know this shouldn't surprise us because at the end of the day, the wrong people has always been appointed in the wrong positions. If we must just go back to Minister Chele, that was fired by the former president because he was found wanting. And then the next president comes and appoints him as Minister of Police. And then we got the Patlanis and all of those top brass who are all compromised, even to the point they are not vetted, but we know the bottom line is people have been put in positions in the justice system, in the SAPS, in the intelligence for political gain. And this is where we are, and this is where I take my hat off for General Mkhwanazi. And I mean, if we look just back at the Zondo Commission, where people's names have come up, but nothing has happened. So hopefully this is just not going to be a talk show. And after this, they must appoint Commissioner Mkhwanazi as Minister of Police.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much for that, Brandon. Brandon and Maibong were saying we're more concerned about what happens with the recommendations. But Mr. Kasa, I want to come back to you. You know, one of the names that came up in the testimony today was that of a police officer, Michael Buledau. That's interesting because Maibongwe actually talked about, you know, equality before the law. But what we heard from Mkhwanazi today is that there was a Michael Buledau, a police officer who was arrested on charges of murder and possession of unlicensed firearms that were linked to other murders. I mean, this was quite something, right? And he goes on to say that that there was even work to ensure that this man does not remain behind bars. And it's one of the things that your own organization has been talking about since last year. Absolutely.
And now, contextualize it to the problems that are being identified with regards to how the commission has managed its own security systems and access like that. We've got a system that you cannot rely on to provide you the kind of security that which will make it easier for people to be accredited or vetted, make sure that there's all those other things that would normally be found at other commissions, whether it's a Zondo or any other commissions, because now you cannot try the system because the system is on trial. So that would add up to some of the problems that you'd expect from a commission resuming.
Oh, this is, you mean with the issues that Bradley had brought
that
up?
Bradley has raised.
Yeah.
And I think we have to cut some slack to the commission. And the time space also. It was announced when in July, August, and and then they have to go and procure private sector, and they have to also follow process to do those things.
Yeah.
And some of the things they're hamstrung. So let us also be moderate when we criticize the commission.
Be forgiving.
Because as far as I'm concerned, I was in attendance. Yes, there are things that could have been done better, but I can tell you it started on time. Everything was as it would have been expected of a commission, and that is what is important. Now, going back to the issue of Michael Pulutau, who was implicated in the matter of one of the engineers at
Armand Swart.
at Transnet or outlet in Vereeniging. It is quite worrisome that you've got senior investigators within SAPS itself who collude with criminals like Nhlanhla and others, allegedly to provide them with the kind of cover, arms, information, to even write on their own police officers, so is the case is so if you do this. And that for us is something that is very, very much worrisome, and which is why it is important to make sure that this commission does not rely or depend on the services of the state, especially as far as the criminal justice system, the police system is concerned, because it is contaminated, and you wouldn't know where to go.
Yeah, just again with this police officer, this Michael Pulutau that the Commissioner spoke about, Bradley, he, Mkhwanazi going on to say that once this individual was released on bail, police investigators into the matter were then facing increased threats on their life, intimidation, and so much more. And I actually want to sit with that a little bit, because what we're hearing today is police that were policing police themselves were in danger.
It's the gangster's paradise, this country of ours, this beloved country of ours. Seriously, that's why a lot of people come to South Africa, because, they pretty much can get away with a lot. And on the back end of that, I also want to just salute the brave men and women that work tirelessly, the ones that are not corrupt, the ones that are not breaking the law, the ones that, write out the warrants for arrest. Thank you to those people. And, this is not a reflection on everybody. But, what really needs to happen is that a complete reset needs to happen, so that we can hold people at the highest level of government accountable if they try and politically interfere with the commissions.
Let's get into the disbandment of the task team, Benedict, and perhaps you can help us with that. There was the question around whether or not the decision by the minister was that of policy, or if it was really an operational decision. I'm hoping that you could actually break that down for us, so we can really, start to understand exactly why that technicality especially matters for Mkhwanazi to clarify as he speaks of the minister's decision to disband the task team.
Yes, and General Mkhwanazi said firstly, the way that the minister's decision to disband the task team came to General Mkhwanazi's attention was quite strange, because it came via a text message that he received through a friend who actually did not have links to police business. And General Mkhwanazi then needed to investigate whether that directive was in fact genuine or not. And he established through channels, including the minister's chief of staff, that actually had occurred. And General Mkhwanazi mentions that he found this strange because it was an operational decision and an operational issue, and not a matter of policy. Now, where this comes from, Naledi, is the Constitution.
Yeah. In
terms of our Constitution, the minister only has policy oversight in respect of the police service. Obviously, I'm just truncating his role, but in a nutshell, it comes to policy oversight and issues of operations, when to investigate, when, to move things forward or stop investigations. Those are operational issues that fall within the realm of the National Commissioner as the head of the SAPS. So a decision by the minister to disband the Political Killings Task Team, which executes on an operational basis, would obviously raise questions as to whether the minister was duly empowered to actually make that decision. So what that would potentially mean, and it would be interesting to hear what Minister Mchunu says around his role in terms of the Constitution, it would mean that Minister Mchunu actually went out of his way to break the Constitution and do something unlawful if General Mkhwanazi is actually found to be telling the truth in this respect.
Prof. Gopal Benedict, they're talking about that communication to the top brass of the police to disband this Political Killings Task Team. And in fact, what Mkhwanazi did today, in fact, quoting what that communication looked like from the minister, saying, and I'm going to read from it: "My observation in this regard, as indicated above, is that further existence of this team is no longer required, as it is it is adding not any value to policing in South Africa. I therefore direct that Political Killings Task Team be disestablished immediately." Now, that part about it not adding any value to policing in South Africa, let's sit with that, Prof, because Mkhwanazi then saying this is a task team that had even been deployed to the Eastern Cape and had a brilliant track record. So just, your understanding on that argument of the value of this Political Killings Task Team and the results that it was able to show.
So, Naledi, I think that's just such a bizarre statement to make, because in my view, any task team would generate some kind of results that would be beneficial to the mandate that they've actually been given. So it is really bizarre that for such an important task team with results, of course, we've seen evidence that this specific task team was actually generating the kind of results that we needed to reassure and re-entrench the reasons for a really solid criminal justice system in South Africa. So it makes it really, I think, scary, really, and worrying and bizarre that the minister would make this kind of comment. But I think obviously at the same time, one would realize that to come up with something so, there was just it's just not concrete. It's so illogical that it makes it so difficult to even try and understand the illogic using a logical framework or a logical lens. It's completely illogical.
Yeah, we also, just briefly, yes, briefly.
Just to add on that, the minister never, per Mkhwanazi's testimony today, the minister never bothered to even ask for the report before he issued an edict to close the task team. And you ask yourself, based on what evidence is he saying this is no longer needed? And here we hear from Mkhwanazi today saying, of all the 121 cases that were taken to Pretoria, only one had an entry about having contacted one of the victims' families or whatever it is. And none of them were actually touched. I'm just saying that, figuratively. And you ask yourself, what really minister, I'm sure the minister has got answers for all those things, but he has a lot of serious questions to actually ask.
And the time frames also matter, because you had Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi today also talking about how it's important to note that this was a minister who really came into that position after, at the beginning of this administration, really, right? So he would have, according to Mkhwanazi, needed a lot more time to actually look at the work and get the results of this Political Killings Task Team. But we're going to talk about just how Mkhwanazi was able to come forward. He had attempted various ways to report some of the challenges that he was having, going all the way up to Parliament until he needed to hold that press briefing. So who, if anyone, failed? the KZN Police Commissioner. We'll get into that after this. Welcome back. You're still watching Newsfeed PM, the late edition, and we continue to reflect on day one of the Madlanga Commission. We're taking your WhatsApps on 072-110-5584. Let's see some of those text messages that have come in from our viewers. Luyanda says, what General Mkhwanazi has revealed exposes the deep erosion and rot within the government. The heartbreaking reality is that nothing meaningful will come from this inquiry. He will likely be pushed aside and vilified instead. As South Africans, we deserve so much better. Oscar says, hi, Lady General Mkhwanazi is the only hope for the restoration of confidence in our criminal justice system. I hope the President will implement the recommendations of the Madlanga Commission. Parliament can stop their gimmicks and listen to the Madlanga Commission. In Mkhwanazi, we trust. Oscar, thank you so much for sending in that text. Mr. T says, we stand with General Shamaze. No sane person can put his or her life in danger and lie to the public. God protect him. I think you meant Mkhwanazi and struggled to type that, but that's okay. So let's talk about the fact that he's talked about. He tried to raise the issue of the disbandment of the political killings task team, the political interference of, in policing, but also the interference of organized crime in policing. He started off, of course, with the National Police Commissioner, going all the way up to the ranks of going as well to Parliament, and then feeling, I have to hold this press briefing. Mr. Kast, just your thoughts on, along the way, who else needs to account for not listening to Mkhwanazi?
To start with, some of the people are also launching their own commissions of inquiry or hearings in Parliament because he went to them. He spoke. What did they do? What did they say at the time? Why did they sit on that information until now here to hold a press conference? Because they sure had those reports. And sure they could have asked the minister to actually come and explain himself why he wants that disbanded. And clearly there was a failure insofar as that element of, but we're not surprised because an erosion of the systems, especially the governance systems, public institutions, especially the legislature, where we have individuals who are implicated in the Zondo Commission, now legislating, and now, Mkhwanazi went to them and say, hey guys, something wrong is happening. They sat on that information. While majority of them obviously are not from, and you ask yourself why. So they've got one. There's a lot of blame to share amongst them, but they also carry a whole, and the president also. I'm sure that the president, he must have picked up that there's something that the minister said must be done and was not done, or not to the extent that the minister wanted. There must be something that needs his intervention. You should have called the national commissioner, the minister, and say, what is going on? You said there was a disbandment of this, and the IMC was not even involved, I believe, insofar as the disbandment is concerned. So it was a single person who decided we are going to disband this, and based on no evidentiary, any events that actually backs up his decision. So there's a lot of blame to go on the executive, the legislature, and the SAPS itself. But we are grateful that Mkhwanazi did have the courage to come out and speak and share with us his frustrations. Yeah,
Bradley, I'm going to ask you the same question, because again, it was on the 5th of March that we saw Mkhwanazi appear before the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Police, where again he brought up these allegations after having done so in the media. What could have been done by the Portfolio Committee, by Parliament especially?
Aiko, Izigalo, nothing, because that ship of my former beloved ANC is taking on water. And, President Ramaphosa, Minister Mchunu, and these are people that work very closely together. They've been colleagues for a very long time. That is President Ramaphosa's intimate circle, and that's who he manages his crisis management with. And the reality is that this has been broken for a long time. When the president took the office, the SSA, the Ministry of Intelligence, put them into the office of the presidency, that is highly irregular. You shouldn't mix those two. It needs the function of national security needs to stay apolitical. It's a service and function of safety and security and protecting of the state and protecting of our country and our people and the Constitution.
Yeah.
And it should be politically interfered with, and it has been. Minister Mchunu was even involved with the CR17 grabber putting out fires for Cyril Ramaphosa. And the thing is that people know all of this in a certain demographic of people that are politically connected and around and hear things.
Right.
But the problem is the rest of the South Africa doesn't know about this skullduggery going on.
Yeah. You know, Benedict, you can take a stab at that question as well, but I think just as we wrap up, we're going into day 2, where you think we'll be heading tomorrow in this inquiry. So what you now are really curious to hear.
Yeah, you know, it's I think the issue with the dockets will really be interesting, because General Mkhwanazi had started speaking about that towards the end of his testimony today. And, you know, what is actually in those dockets and who is implicated in those dockets, because that'll start to reveal you know, exactly what is going on. Because, you know, I love how he started his testimony to say that this has been the concerted work of many other people in the police. It's not just him who stood up, but it's been a group effort, because people within the police are concerned that the efforts of the police to actually protect the country are being sabotaged by politicians. And as the result of corruption. So that's where we're heading. And I think that will be interesting, because we'll start to draw links between politics and corruption and criminality. Right. Exactly where, you know, this commission is taking us. Yeah.
Sorry to push you, I'm out of time, but Prof Gopal, okay, we've lost Prof Gopal. I wanted to get what it is that she's hoping to hear tomorrow, but it's still going to be lots to talk about, because the commission is continuing, and this was only day 1. But thank you so much to our panel: Bradley Steyn, security expert, Professor Nhlanhla Gopal, Professor of UKZN Department of Criminology and Forensic Studies, Mr. Benedict Phiri, who is, of course, a legal expert. And in studio with us, once again, Mr. Tebogo Kaas, is Public Interest South Africa's founder and chairperson. Do stay with Channel 405. Tomorrow we continue to bring you coverage of the Madlanga Commission. Let's take a short break. More news on the other side.